Okay people, welcome to the channel, and in this case doing a requested video, which I always welcome. Any suggestions or anything you want me to cover in future videos, let me know and I'll do my best. Now, I was being asked about my loadout for my Drake Corsair, which it did take a little bit of looking into, but this is the one that I found to have the best results, the best combination of everything that I want to have in terms of a good amount of firepower, but also having laser weapons as to not run out of ammo in the worst possible moment. So this is what I have. Drake Corsair. The thing you want to start with is changing the quantum drive. This is where I go with a crossfield. It gives me great range. I mean, you could go with something that is B or A military, but the crossfield is the one that gives you the pretty much the same speed, but a lot more range. And yes, this has a massive fuel tank, so you rarely ever need it. But I'm telling you, every once in a while, a little bit more of fuel range does help save the day. And the speed difference really makes no sense because they're all pretty fast. Just a couple seconds difference, if that. In terms of shield, go with the military grade A. Yes, you can go with a civilian one or the industrial one. This one has the best like EM or distortion weapon resistance, so FR86. And here is where we get to the weapons. Now, in terms of the weapons loadout, we want to go with changing all of these for size 1 missiles. So all of these will go to size 1. I think you can pack like 32 of them if you change all of these to size 1. And EM, right, those are the ones you want to get. So yeah, electromagnetic, task force, these are the ones we get for our racks. What else? Yeah, there's really no sense in going for the larger ones because the more missiles you have, at the end of the day, the more firepower you have. You just add it up and you just, yeah, you get a lot more damage with more smaller missiles. So we're installing that here. And in terms of the weapons, we are gonna go with, and I'll show you this in Urkel, so as to have a, the lower one is gonna be a Omnisky size 5 laser cannons, and on top of that, we're gonna go with the, okay, so these ones will be the 84B ballistics on the wings. Alright, these are the ones we go for the wings, and same for this one, ballistics. So wings size 4, we go for ballistics there, and here we go for Omnisky laser cannons underneath. Why? Because they are shorter and you're less likely to mess them up when doing a more, less ideal landing. And on top of those, we go with 2 size 5 ballistics as well. And this combination that we have here gives us the best possible results. So that is our ship. I think I have some of those little missiles still left there. Okay, so task force. Anyway, replace all of the missiles. Yeah, that's another one of these racks. All of these with size 1s. You need to buy a new rack for those missiles, but it's available in most places, and if not sure where, I'm in area 18, which is where I suggest starting. Usually that's where you find most of the stuff you want, and that's how we end up with our Corsair properly set up. Okay, so here we are at Urkel.games. Urkel.games is one of these assets you want to learn how to use, because here is where you really figure out what works and what doesn't. So as you see, I have the Corsair already loaded. This is a stock Corsair 2800 DPS. Now the Corsair is the ship with the largest potential pilot DPS. Why? Because it has 4 size 5 hardpoints and 2 size 4 hardpoints assigned to the pilot. That is by far the best potential firepower you can have as a solo pilot in the game. So yeah, and the Corsair is probably the best overall, like one single player do it all ship, especially if you're more leaning towards combat. You can still do some cargo. It has 72 SCU of cargo, and this is usually enough for a little bit of those eggs or some of the drugs you find when doing bounty missions. Let's see if that changes or not. But you can drag around a vehicle because of how wide this is. You can do a little bit of cargo. It just handles okay. It's very big and a little bit bricky, but the trick is the pilot DPS and the shields. You have those size 5 shields, size 3 shields, as I was saying before. The civilian ones and the military ones and the industrial ones, the 3 of them are basically the same. The only difference is that they have a little bit of distortion weapon shutdown and maximum reboot damage. Usually it's going to be better with the FR86. So these are the ones you want to buy. Now, here is where it gets interesting. In terms of stock weapons, this is stupid. Using gimbals when you have a size 5, a hardpoint, that makes no sense because check out that DPS that you have from that laser cannon, right? If you instead go with a size 5 laser cannon, you have a ton more DPS. Now, one of the things you may be tempted is, oh yeah, I will go all ballistics. That's never a good idea. You run out of ammunition too fast. Well, what about all laser cannons? Well, that's something that I did use for a while, but see what happens. The more laser cannons I add up, the less damage they do. And if I include these two also as laser cannons, right? Let me go with laser cannons there as well. Look how little damage they start doing. And this is because of something that happens here, which is the more laser cannons you have, the more laser weapons you have, the less damage they end up doing. So these, at this point, 319, right? Let's say I start removing these, right? I remove everything. I leave empty. I leave this one empty, leaving this one empty. You see how it starts going up? So here's why sometimes a ship like the C2 with just 2 weapons still does a heck of a lot of damage, because the less weapons I use, the more damage each individual weapon does, right? I mean, even if I reduce it down to 1, right? How that goes up. Now, if I add one more, I mean, here, as I am on its own, this is the amount of damage I can do, okay? But the moment I add another one, right? If I add one more is a solid increase. I'm barely losing anything. If I add a third one, right, let me go with a third one. Well, man, it's not really all that bad, but it's definitely losing power. So you can make a case for 2 laser cannons, size 5 laser cannons, 2 of them, maybe even 3 of them. But at the end of the day, there's a point in which you want to go with ballistics, because just check out what happens when I add those size 5 ballistics Gatlings, and that's a ton of firepower that I'm going up with. And remember these 2 size 4 smaller weapons? Well, these 2 going with ballistics, they still do a ton of damage on its own. So I fill these up with ballistics, and I'm almost at 1000 DPS, right? I'm almost at 10,000, almost 10,000 DPS of damage nearly here, right? So that's a heck of a lot of damage. Now I will run out of these first. These will go on for a while. I have a decent amount of firepower here, right? 2,000 rounds of 2,600 rounds of ammunition. That is a lot more ammo. So it's gonna be shooting a lot more. These sustain quite a bit, but if I keep my distance, I can basically nail most hammerheads with just these 2 ballistics. Now, when I'm in a little bit more of a hurry, when I'm pressured a little bit more, I can rip with these 4 ballistic weapons for the total almost 10 DPS. With these two, I'm what, 2,000, almost 2,400, which is basically what I had with this stock setup. So 2 size 5 laser cannons, the rest Gatling ballistics, as you just saw. That gives you the best combination. Believe me, when you just fire with everything at the same time, you just burn down the hammerhead in just a handful of seconds, as if you just torped it. It is super impressive, especially when you're up and close. So when you're having like a pass by very close, when you're not kiting it anymore, and you just want to go and tank it, well, yes, you will bring it down. and probably goes for most PvPers as well. If the guy is not very good and not very nimble with his light fighter, you just need just a fraction of a second to just melt it up with these weapons. Big difference between the stock and the setup that you just saw, and that's the one I use in my ship, in my Corsair. Folks, that's what I've been using for many bounty missions, and it's been working perfectly after trying most other combinations. Laser repeaters, forget about it. It's completely wasted. They just do not do enough damage, and it's a slow ship already, so no point in going with that. Guys, that's going to be all for now. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this kind of content. See you next time. Take care.